Hello, you multi millennial manifests. How was it? Welcome to Ralphie Review 1012 Extras. Extra content, extra information, extra perspective, extra views, extra experience shared from here in the Bothy, somewhere in the Irish Sea. And thank you to Peter Ledchowski, 5824, for providing the malt mention. Thank you, Peter. Lovely. Can close my malt mention book now. This is the malt mention book where I write down all the malt mentions. It goes right back to review. This is just a little cute. I'd never planned to say this, disclose this, but think about even before I commented what the numbers were. 764. So it goes to around about 700. I had a previous book, but it fell to pieces. Right. The title of this extras is Harmonious Enhancement Blending. In my last extras 1011, I talked about when we blend whiskies together, we shouldn't be overawed by the incredible knowledge and experience of master blenders, despite the fact that many master blenders do have incredible knowledge and experience. Because there's this sort of unwritten assumption that once the master blender has composed either a blended Scotch whisky or a malt blend, so a blend of single malts, or in fact a single malt whisky, a batch of single malt whisky, that we are supposed to respect and worship what has been created by adding nothing more to it than water. And why on earth would we want to add any more whisky? And the answer is very simple, because when we start mixing our whiskies together, and many of us, in fact 99.9% of people watching this video, have more than one opened bottle of whisky in the cabinet. In fact, many probably have 30 or 40, even 50, because it's a sign of the times. So there's plenty of opportunity, having all the materials on location, conveniently close by, to do a little bit of your own mixing. And when we start mixing and gain the experience from mixing our whiskies carefully, strategically, and informed blending, informed mixing, what we do is we start to understand how the blenders work, how they achieve what they do achieve with what they've got. And one of the challenges, of course, if you can imagine, for a master blender making up a batch of 10,000 casks getting pulled together into several batches being stored at the bottling plant in stainless steel silos, you know, they've got to try and get a little bit of continuity. And this is the reason, one very important reason that never gets discussed by the industry, for chill filtration and the adding of caramel colourant, is to assist and aid the master blender in providing the consistency of the experience. Because when people are looking at whisky with their eyes, if it looks the same colour, then they'll believe it's the same flavour. Of course, you and I know, because we're kind of finding our way around supermarket shelves and noticing the detail, that you can find one batch of, say, White and Mackay. I'll just use that as a routine example because I know it's true. Will have a very different amount of caramel colour in it compared to another batch of White and Mackay standard blend. You know, as soon as you see the two bottles sitting beside by side, they're distinctly different colours. So you sometimes wonder, is it such a habit that they say, oh, well, we don't even need to be consistent with the colour anymore. So long as we just colour up a bit, people will be happy. And they're right. The majority of people are happy. But you and I, we're malt mates. We are not the majority of people. And we're not always happy because we buy single malts, investing our hard-earned cash. And sometimes we're just so disappointed because we can tell that the master blender has been preparing their batch of single malt or blended Scotch using some piss poor casks, and they haven't added enough good quality casks to give it the lift that it needs to provide that consistency of quality of smell and taste that the majority of whisky buyers don't notice because they're too busy loading their big thick tumblers with dollops of ice. Particularly in bars. Do you know a reason why they put ice in whisky in bars? Never gets told about. Very cynical, by the way. But as soon as I tell you, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is simple. If you're going to serve someone a straight liquor, the more you disguise the taste of the hard alcohol, the quicker they will finish the drink and come back up to the bar, buy another one, and give you another tip. That's why hard spirits are so often mixed. You pay for the spirit, you pay for the mixer. Ka-ching, ka-ching. You drink it quickly because there's ice, because it fills the glass. Makes the drink look more than it is for virtually zero cost. Because ice is virtually zero cost. Takes a small drink, makes it look like a big drink. Big drink that's not going to last you very long because there's not a lot of flavour, particularly as the ice melts. And it's all cold. So you just knock it back because it's nice and refreshing because you go and rabbit to your friends because you're in that environment and you're getting pished, and that's what people do when they're pished. They just go rabbit and talk pish. I'm just saying. You know it's true. Here's a glass of Campbellton Loch. Just reviewed it in Ralphie Review 1012. It's delicious stuff. Really good quality casks. I'm going to share something with you briefly. A few distilleries still do this, but not many. They get casks delivered from the bodegas or from intact from off the ships from the USA, if they happen to be ex-bourbon casks. And they get delivered straight to the distillery. But of course the distillery have ordered hundreds of these casks because they had the budget for it and the casks were available and ready. But there's no way they're going to use them all at once. So what they're going to do, because if they leave the casks outside, particularly in summer, the residual alcohol inside the casks is going to get evaporated out because of the heat and the fact that the casks are empty. So there's not a lot of alcohol left inside. And as soon as these casks have driven out the alcohol, because they always see stacked casks outside a distillery in a distillery grounds on a nice sunny day, it always smells lovely. Always smells beautiful. A really nice hot day. And that's all the liquor just getting squeezed out the ends of the staves as the heat expands and increases the pressure inside the cask. So the cask is breathing even faster than if it was full of liquor, or even half full of liquor. So the distilleries say, well, we don't want to lose that alcohol that's left there because the alcohol's keeping the bacterial growth at bay. And if we don't use our casks quickly, they'll spoil. But we don't want to fill our casks. So do you know what they do? They used to do. I'm sure they still do it. Some of them. What they'll do is just roll these empty casks in, and we'll just put a couple of litres in the bottom of the casks to keep them sweet. Right? Or it might not be a couple of litres. They could use 20 litres. In fact, they could quarter fill the casks, depending on the volume of the production at any moment in time. And they'll have these casks. They're not the final fill. They're not even technically the first fill, because they may use already matured whiskey in these casks, and they may just use new make spirit, probably new make spirit. So they've got the option. See, if they use new make spirit, they don't have to declare that the casks are no longer first fill and immediate raw previous content as you would get with sherry casks. Oloroso would be the previous content of a fresh sherry cask. But if you put a little bit of new make spirit in just to beef up what's left of the Oloroso sherry to keep the cask sweet and stop bacterial growth, well, it's a very good idea. And not only that, but it starts to prime or fingerprint that cask. So when you either put whiskey in it or fresh new make spirit or just fill it up with new make spirit, the signature's already in there. So distilleries do this. Of course, what they might decide to do is do a kind of longer process. So they've got big big sherry butts, and they're not going to use them till next year. So what they do is they just fill them with ordinary whiskey or new make spirit and say, I tell you what, we'll leave our new make spirit in there for 3 or 4 years just to sweeten up the cask for its real fill later on. And then they'll decant it, and they've got this lovely, delicious, super sherried, really it's no more than 4 years old, and then they move that into ordinary casks. So because it's kind of been in fresh first fill casks for just a few years, 3 or 4 years, perhaps shorter, perhaps a bit longer, and then it goes into ordinary casks which are not as active. They might not be active at all really, but the residual of the freshness from the first cask is still intact. Do you still follow me? No, what we're doing is we're playing dodgems here with casks to keep our consignment of empty casks in as good a condition as we can. And that may be the reason that we will see more distilleries in the future start to bottle non-age statement whiskey which happens to be flavoured beyond its age statement. I think this is actually quite a good example of that, although I want to make it clear for the record that I'm not saying that Springbank prime casks with a certain amount of new make spirit or immature whiskey and then bottle it as a blended malt. However, if they did that, it would be very, very acceptable. Why? Because it's getting done right. That's the reason. Something else now. We're on to the second half of this video. And here we have Campbeltown Loch, which everybody knows when you do some basic online research, is the smallest region. Campbeltown is the smallest whisky region in Scotland, with 5 brands from 3 distilleries. 3 distilleries, Springbank, Glengyle, Glen-Scotia. 5 brands, Kilkerran from Glengyle, Glen-Scotia from Glen-Scotia, and from Springbank we get Springbank, Hazelburn and Longrow. Longrow's the peated version, Hazelburn's the triple distilled version. Springbank is kind of 2 and a bit and a half and a maybe what's it times version. So I've got a glass here and it's very acceptable, it's lovely, but this gives me an opportunity because when I was last over in Glasgow, I was just at the right time at the end of my visit to just nip into the whiskey shop and buy myself a bottle of this. This is the one I managed to get hold of. 10-year-old Palo Cortado Springbank single malt, which I will be reviewing in a forthcoming review, part of the Oswis series. So here we have, and I'm just going to add a wee bit because there's already water in this. Here we have the blended malt, £40 a bottle, £60 a bottle, right? Roughly. And this is a single malt. This is the highly desirable one, and this is the one that all the collectors don't give a damn about. It's not important, despite the fact it's got Springbank in it. So we know it's got Springbank in it. We know it could have Hazelburn and Longrow in it. We don't know what the proportions, but we know it's there. We know it's small batch. We know it's quality, integrity lead, 46%, unchill filtered, natural colour. So is this. What are we going to do? We're going to use the knowledge that we now have about this bottle, the malt blend, and we are going to add this, a small drop of the single malt to the malt blend. But it's not just a shot in the dark, because you see, we already know that the single malt Springbank in this, either in the Springbank permutation, long row permutation, Hazelburn permutation, or all three. How much Springbank are we committing to this project? 5 millilitres. A tiny drop. That wouldn't even wet the bottom of your glass. And yet we have sacrificed our desirable single malt into a malt blend. Is this a good idea? Yes, it really, really is. Because the Springbank signature is already in there, and with adding Springbank single malt, we're bringing it out completely intact. So that is tasting more and more like Springbank single malt and not a malt blend. Because we've tipped the odds towards the Springbank single malt. Therefore, because it quite possibly makes up the majority of the content in this £40 a bottle presentation, we have the next best thing to not being able to afford much in the way of Springbank. Now, how are you going to buy a Springbank? Well, let me tell you, you're not going to queue up at the shops waiting for 2 hours and joining the Black Friday scrum that unfortunately trying to buy a Springbank can become, with staff in shops receiving abusive phone calls. Yeah, I've been hearing all about it. But we can bypass that. We just go into the auctions now. We look for a scruffy old bottling of Springbank. Scruffier the better, actually. So long as it's got a decent neck fill. You don't want low neck fill when you're buying at auction, because that suggests it's been stored on its side and content has leaked out. It also suggests when you get that sort of fill in a bottle, a sealed bottle, that in fact it's been stored in a hot climate, and the losses out of that bottle, it's not the water that's getting evaporated out, it's the alcohol. And therefore in that bottle the actual alcoholic strength is being reduced over time. So don't buy sealed bottles of whiskey at auction that have fill levels below the shoulder. That's my advice. If you do, you'll see them going cheap. This level is fine. Scratched label, even better, because it will put the collectors off. So what we have in the nose, it's about to drink it there, I'm in such a hurry. A beautiful red currant cranberry Springbank signature. It's really standing out. That rich, voluptuous maltiness that you get from Springbank, with all its sensation range from the grain, the sour, bitter and slight umami on the taste. The length of, that's just what's really prominent, the length of the arrival, development and finish has grown by a third. The drama of flavour and the red fruit notes, which raspberry notes are appearing now, cherry notes, ripe red cherry, raspberry notes. The pickled pineapple has disappeared. It's been replaced with a slight savoury toffee honeysuckle note. You see, this hasn't changed slightly, it's changed substantially and significantly. The flavour's changed. It's better. It already was good. The sensation range has changed. It's more balanced. It's more dramatic. The delivery in the arrival, the development, and the finish, all that has extended remarkably so. So when this bottle was scoring at 85, having put a teaspoon, here we are, luxury teaspoons, that's all you need. You don't need big capital investments for this project. I'll actually put this up, really, to 87 out of 100. Having added a drop of this, it's really given more sense of what we'd expect with age as an 8, maybe a 10-year-old whiskey. It's become much more elegant, much more complex, much more rounded, much more of everything. See, a wee drop of this, it hasn't just kind of disappeared into this. It's really amplified it all. Wonderfully, wonderfully well. I highly recommend you do something like this. And what I'm focusing with this blending practice here, this blending protocol, is understand what you're blending into so that you can tailor your blending up procedure as carefully as possible. So you're not just taking a shot in the dark and see if you get lucky. There you go. Now you know. I'm Ralphie. This is completed. As you can see, pure anorak stuff. But hey, it's what my videos do. Eccentric, unconformist. A nuisance actually to some. But hey, that's a story for another day. See you soon, malt mates. Bye-bye.